Hello everyone. Today, we're about to embark on an emotional journey, a story that delves deep into love, relationships, and self-discovery. It's a tale of growth, where innocence meets the challenges of youth, and unexpected emotions can redefine the way we see life. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to support me in bringing you more amazing stories. Now, let's dive in and experience this unforgettable tale together. Dad, this banana is way too big for me. I don't think I can eat it all. Those words might seem trivial to others, but they hold a cherished memory for me. They remind me of a simpler time when life was full of innocence and small moments meant everything. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm 21 years old, and I live with my father, Benjamin. My life has been anything but ordinary. I've been an orphan since I was very young, having lost my mother to a long and grueling battle with a serious illness. She was the anchor of our family, and when she passed away, it was as though a storm had swept through our lives, leaving my father and me clinging to each other amidst the wreckage. In those tender years, my dad became my entire world. He was my parent, my protector, and my greatest source of comfort. He worked tirelessly, sacrificing his own dreams to ensure I never lacked anything, though the absence of my mother was a void too large to fill. My dad did everything in his power to make sure I felt loved, secure, and supported. His love was a constant light, guiding me through the darkest nights of my childhood. Growing up, I remember how he would sit beside me on quiet evenings, sharing stories about my mother, how she laughed, how she loved life, and how much she had wanted to see me grow up. His words painted vivid pictures of a woman I barely had the chance to know, yet felt so close to through his recollections. For many years, our life was steady and comforting in its simplicity. We had a quiet routine, breakfast together every morning, evenings spent talking, and weekends filled with small adventures around our town. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. And for me, that moment came when I turned 18 and left for university. Leaving home was one of the most significant moments of my life. It was my first real step into the unknown, away from the safe cocoon my father had built for me. I still remember the day I packed my bags and said goodbye. My father stood in the doorway, trying to smile, but his eyes betrayed the sadness he felt. He hugged me tightly, whispering, "You're going to do great, sweetheart. Just remember, I'm always here for you." Stepping onto campus was both thrilling and intimidating. The vibrant energy of university life was intoxicating. There were so many people to meet, so much to learn, and so many experiences to dive into. It was a world filled with opportunities. Yet it was also a world that left me feeling vulnerable and exposed. At first, I was a wide-eyed girl filled with curiosity, but I was also naive to the complexities of life outside my small, sheltered world. Love, relationships, and the social dynamics of university life were uncharted territory for me. While my peers seemed to navigate these waters effortlessly, I often felt like an outsider looking in. I made friends quickly, an eclectic group of people from diverse backgrounds. We shared stories of our lives, bonded over late-night study sessions, and laughed over countless silly moments. Yet, amidst the laughter and the chaos, there were moments of stillness when I felt an ache deep within me. I missed home. I missed my dad's reassuring presence, the warmth of his love, and the quiet comfort of our life together. Everything seemed to be falling into place until one day, one pivotal day, everything changed. It was a day that would forever alter the trajectory of my life. A day that forced me to confront emotions and realities I had never faced before. I was introduced to a side of life I had never known. My friends were more worldly, more experienced, and far more confident in navigating the social scene. They introduced me to late-night outings, lively parties, and the thrill of exploring the unknown. At first, I hesitated, unsure if I belonged in this fast-paced world. But curiosity got the better of me. And soon, I found myself drawn into their whirlwind of excitement. Weekend nights in our dorm room were a spectacle. My friends would gather, transforming the space into a hub of energy. Music blared, laughter echoed, and the air buzzed with anticipation as they prepared for nights out. The energy was infectious. And before long, I found myself swept up in the excitement. I'll never forget the first time I stepped into a bar with them. The vibrant neon lights, the pulse of the music, and the mix of strangers dancing and laughing was both overwhelming and exhilarating. It was a world so different from the quiet life I had known. And though I felt out of place, I couldn't help but be intrigued by the possibilities it offered. This was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself. It was a time of discovery, growth, and transformation, a time when the innocent girl I once was began to evolve into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. But little did I know, the road ahead would be filled with challenges I couldn't yet imagine. Face reflecting a mixture of happiness and pride. As I walked down the hallway to my old room, memories flooded back, memories of a simpler time before the whirlwind of university life had changed me. The familiar scent of home, the creak of the wooden floorboards, and the faded posters on the walls all felt like echoes of a version of myself I had almost forgotten. When I opened the door to my room, it was exactly as I had left it, a time capsule of who I used to be. My childhood stuffed animals sat neatly on the bed. My old books lined the shelves, and the soft glow of the evening sun filtered through the curtains. It felt strange, almost surreal, to step back into this space as the person I had become. The room seemed to hold both a warm welcome and a quiet question: who are you now? I sat down on the bed and ran my fingers over the fabric of my old blanket. A wave of nostalgia washing over me. It was comforting and yet disconcerting to confront the contrast between who I was and who I had become. My first year at university had been a journey of exploration and self-discovery. And though I cherished the memories, I couldn't ignore the lingering question of what I had gained, and perhaps lost, along the way. That evening, as we gathered for dinner, my mother fussed over me, asking about my classes, my friends, and whether I was eating enough. My younger sibling, who had grown taller in my absence, teased me about how different I seemed. It wasn't just the new haircut or the trendy clothes, it was something deeper. A change in the way I carried myself and the confidence I radiated. I smiled, deflecting their questions with jokes and half-answers. But inside, I wondered how much of that new me would remain once I returned to the familiar rhythms of home life. Later that night, I found myself lying awake, staring at the ceiling. The silence of my room was almost deafening compared to the lively chaos of dorm life. Thoughts swirled in my mind, memories of laughter and music, late-night conversations with friends, and the exhilaration of falling in love for the first time. But alongside those memories came moments of doubt and introspection. Was I truly happy with the person I was becoming? Or was I simply caught up in the momentum of it all? I reached for my phone and opened the chat with the boy I had met at that party. His last message still lingered on the screen. A simple, "Good night. Sleep well." I hesitated before typing out a response, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The connection we had shared felt so real and yet so fragile. Like a thread that could either weave something beautiful or unravel completely. "Good night." I finally typed. "I'm thinking of you." I hit send and set the phone down, my heart both heavy and hopeful. As the days at home passed, I began to rediscover pieces of myself that I had forgotten. I spent hours talking with my parents, sharing stories of my first year while listening to their gentle advice. I walked through the neighborhood where I had grown up, feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and gratitude. The simplicity of home life offered a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of university. And in that quiet, I found clarity. One evening, my father and I sat outside on the porch, watching the stars. He turned to me and said, "Life is about balance. It's okay to explore and push boundaries. But don't forget who you are and where you come from." His words resonated deeply, grounding me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. When it was finally time to return to university, I felt a sense of resolution. I wasn't the same shy girl who had left home. But I also wasn't entirely the person I had been during those wild, whirlwind nights. I was someone in between, a work in progress, shaped by my experiences but not defined by them. And for the first time, I felt at peace with that. As the train pulled away from the station, I looked back at my parents waving goodbye, their smiles filled with love and pride. I carried their words and their warmth with me, ready to face whatever the next chapter of life had in store. Eyes brimming with affection, I slowly walked toward the luggage area, each step carrying a quiet sense of belonging. The house around me was steeped in a peaceful stillness, one that held no emptiness or loneliness. Instead, it thrived with a subtle vibrancy, an energy born from the warmth of countless shared moments, laughter, and love. Being home was like stepping into a sanctuary where time slowed, where every corner and creak of the floorboards told a story of comfort and connection. That evening, as we gathered around the dinner table, the atmosphere mirrored the tranquility of the house itself, calm, familiar, and unspokenly intimate. The silence between us wasn't awkward or heavy, it was a space filled with understanding, a reflection of years spent together as a family. I began recounting my adventures from the past year at university, weaving tales of funny mishaps and cherished milestones. My laughter rang out, and the house seemed to respond, its walls echoing with the joy of being together once again. Dad sat across from me, his eyes glimmering with a mix of love and quiet pride. Occasionally, he chuckled at my stories, a deep, dry laugh that was uniquely his. His reactions, though subtle, felt like the most meaningful applause I could ever receive. As I looked at him, a realization washed over me like a tide I hadn't expected. My father, always a symbol of unwavering strength in my life, suddenly appeared to me in a new light. Though nearing 50, his dedication to physical fitness and his demanding job had sculpted his body into one of remarkable vitality. He sat there in a simple tank top, the fabric snug against his defined shoulders and arms, each movement emphasizing his enduring strength. For the first time, I truly saw him, not just as my dad but as a person whose strength and presence radiated from within. It was a revelation, a moment of clarity that filled me with both awe and unfamiliar emotions. My thoughts became a jumbled mess as I continued to watch him. His strength. His age. His character, it all suddenly seemed so much more vivid. Like seeing a painting after it had been carefully restored. My gaze lingered. And for a moment, I lost myself in the realization of how much he meant to me. It was then that Dad noticed my stare, breaking the silence with his warm, steady voice. "What's on your mind?" he asked. His tone filled with gentle curiosity. Startled out of my thoughts, I quickly shook my head and smiled sheepishly. "Nothing," I replied, though my cheeks betrayed me with a slight flush. "I wasn't thinking about anything." His eyes softened as we exchanged a knowing smile. The kind only a father and daughter can share. There was no need for words in that moment, the connection between us spoke volumes. Still, after a pause, he added thoughtfully, "You've only been away for a year. But you've changed so much." I nodded, acknowledging the truth in his observation. "I guess I have," I said softly, my voice tinged with a hint of nostalgia. "But you've changed too," I added after a beat, my gaze steady on him. "You're still the same strong, amazing guy. But, maybe just a little older." His laughter filled the room. A sound both hearty and modest. "I'll take that as a compliment," he said, clearly pleased. "And you've grown up," he remarked, his tone laced with pride. "Maybe," I conceded with a grin. "But you're still my dad. And that's what matters most." Later that night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts betrayed me. The image of Dad, his strength, his presence, kept resurfacing. Vivid and unshakable. It wasn't just admiration, it was something deeper. Something that made me uneasy and introspective. Why did this thought persist? Lingering like a melody that refused to fade. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing sleep to take over. But the image remained. It was as if my mind had imprinted the moment permanently. And no amount of distraction could erase it. The next day, the summer heat descended mercilessly, blanketing everything in an oppressive warmth. The sun's relentless rays turned the house into an oven. And I found myself retreating to the living room in search of respite. Yet, even there, the air was thick and stifling. Each breath a chore under the heavy blanket of humidity. I fanned myself vigorously. But the effort felt futile. The air unmoving except for the occasional breeze that seemed to carry only more heat. Beads of sweat trickled down my back. Each drop a reminder of the midday swelter. Even the walls seemed to radiate the sun's fury. And I couldn't escape the feeling that I was trapped in an inescapable haze. Through it all, my thoughts drifted back to the night before. To the quiet warmth of the dinner table and the quiet strength of my father. That image, so vivid and raw, stayed with me, like an unspoken secret between my mind and heart, waiting for clarity that seemed just out of reach. Benjamin, the man whose every gesture seemed to captivate my attention with an almost magnetic pull, had left early that morning to run errands, leaving me to endure the relentless heat alone. His absence felt like an eternity stretching ahead of me. A void that amplified the oppressive weight of the summer sun. He wouldn't return until noon. And until then, the hours felt like they were melting away in slow, agonizing drips. The heat was a constant, suffocating force, pressing against me like an invisible shroud. It invaded every pore, every inch of my skin, making me feel as though I were simmering from the inside out. Beads of sweat formed and trickled down my neck, but even they seemed to evaporate before offering any relief. The air around me was stagnant, heavy, offering no reprieve, just a reminder of how inescapable the torment was. Desperation took hold as I sought relief. The idea of a cool shower became my singular focus. A lifeline I clung to in the unbearable inferno. I escaped to the bathroom. The promise of water my only solace. The first contact of cool liquid against my burning skin was nothing short of heavenly. It poured over me in soothing waves, washing away the frustration and exhaustion that had been building all morning. Each droplet cascaded down, carrying with it the heat, the discomfort, and the chaotic thoughts that had been swirling relentlessly in my mind. I stood there, letting the water envelop me completely, as if its touch could dissolve not just the physical discomfort but the deeper, intangible burdens I was carrying. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to surrender entirely, to exist solely in the soothing embrace of that sanctuary. The bathroom transformed into a private refuge, a world detached from the suffocating reality beyond its door. The water didn't just cool my skin, it cooled the storm within, quieting the turbulence that I couldn't fully name or understand. My breath steadied, my shoulders relaxed, and I felt the faintest sense of renewal stirring within me. But as the water washed over me, my thoughts remained restless, darting like shadows in my mind. I clenched my hands tightly, trying to ground myself in the coolness of the water streaming down, its rhythmic splashes against the floor echoing the chaotic rhythm of my heartbeat. The faint breeze from the half-open window brushed against my damp skin, sharp and unexpected, pulling me back into the present moment with an involuntary shiver. The memory of Benjamin lingered in my thoughts, as vivid and inescapable as the heat itself. I couldn't shake the image of him, the way his eyes had locked with mine earlier, piercing and unguarded, before he turned away. That fleeting connection had stirred something deep within me, an ache I couldn't quite define, a longing I didn't fully understand. Eventually, I stepped out of the shower, the cool water still clinging to my skin like a protective layer against the oppressive warmth outside. I wrapped myself in a towel, feeling a strange mixture of lightness and heaviness as I moved through the house. The steam from the bathroom mingled with the sultry air of the afternoon, creating an almost suffocating blend of warmth and moisture that felt impossible to escape. When I entered the living room, my pulse quickened. Benjamin was there, seated on the worn couch, his body glistening with sweat. His shirt clung to him like a second skin, outlining every curve of the muscles that had so often occupied my thoughts. He looked up briefly, his eyes meeting mine for the briefest of moments before darting away. There was something in his expression, a mixture of vulnerability and restraint, that made my chest tighten. The air between us felt charged, heavy with unspoken words and unacknowledged feelings. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure of what to do with the surge of emotions rising within me. But then, as if propelled by a force I couldn't resist, I stepped closer. Something within me had shifted, a boldness, unfamiliar yet undeniable, surged to the surface. I was no longer content to remain a passive observer, lingering on the edges of my own desires. My lips curved into a small, deliberate smile as I closed the distance between us. Every step felt deliberate, each one dissolving the space that had always existed between us. I sat down beside him, so close that our shoulders nearly touched. The tension in the room was palpable, the silence thick with possibility. My heart pounded in my chest, a rhythmic reminder of how much had changed in those fleeting moments. I wasn't sure what would come next, But I knew one thing with absolute certainty: this moment, this connection, was only the beginning of something far more profound. The atmosphere between us was electric, dense with the weight of unspoken words and emotions. Silence enveloped the room. Yet my heart thundered as if it might burst free. The heat of the moment was palpable. An irresistible pull that had been quietly simmering in the unacknowledged tension between us. Though I couldn't predict what lay ahead, one thing was clear: this moment was a turning point. And there would be no going back to what once was. Caught in a storm of emotions, he possessed a magnetic ability to strip away my awareness of the world around me. His presence was intoxicating, his embrace transformative, lifting me to heights of passion and ecstasy I hadn't known were possible. The house, which once symbolized quiet solitude, morphed into something profoundly different, a sacred witness to our most fervent, passionate exchanges. Its walls seemed alive with echoes of our connection, as if every corner held the memory of our shared intensity. As the days unfolded, the sun would drench the room in a soft, golden glow each afternoon. I found myself waiting for him with a longing that bordered on desperation. The sound of his familiar footsteps sent ripples of anticipation through my body, quickening my pulse and awakening every sense. His mere presence brought the world to life, as if everything around me existed only to amplify the magnetism between us. But what we shared wasn't limited to the veiled secrecy of twilight hours. There were mornings too, quiet, reflective moments where the first gentle rays of sunlight painted the room. Our eyes would meet, locking in a silent communion that spoke volumes. Words were unnecessary. The depths of our emotions were conveyed in the lingering gazes and subtle expressions that passed between us. It was in those moments that I began to understand the profound depth of my feelings for him. This was love, consuming and unrelenting, binding me in a way that felt as inevitable as it was irreversible. Time, it seemed, paused for us. Each tender moment wove us tighter into the fabric of our reality. A reality that felt both surreal and utterly natural. The days blended into weeks, each one deepening our connection, until the day I graduated from college. That milestone marked a bittersweet transition, a poignant reminder of how far we had come and how fleeting these moments could be. Within the house that bore witness to our secrets, the world outside faded, leaving just the two of us, immersed in a love that felt too intense to be contained. Now, as I look back, I am overcome by the contrast between the life I once knew and the one I now inhabit. The simplicity and peace that had defined my existence have been replaced by a whirlwind of emotion and memory. I feel unmoored, as if the very foundation of who I am has shifted beneath me. I have become a stranger to myself, lost in the complexity of a love that refuses to be forgotten. I find myself wrestling with questions I cannot easily answer. What is right? And what is wrong? What could have been? And what should have been? I long for the clarity of my former life, the uncomplicated innocence that seems so distant now. Yet I know that some changes are irrevocable, and there is no returning to what once was. When caught at the crossroads of reason and emotion, it's vital to pause and reflect. Is the pursuit of fleeting desires worth jeopardizing the values and principles that form the cornerstone of your life? These principles are the bedrock of your relationships, your peace, and your sense of self. Protect them, and approach every decision with the wisdom gained through experience. Emotions, while beautiful and powerful, can obscure our judgment. They tempt us with the allure of instant gratification, often at the expense of long-term fulfillment. It's easy to act on impulse, swayed by the intensity of the moment. But such actions can carry consequences that linger far longer than the emotions that sparked them. True. Enduring connections are built not solely on passion but on trust, loyalty, and sincerity, the pillars that withstand the test of time. Before making any decision, consider its impact not only on yourself but also on those who care for you. Remember, your inner peace is a priceless treasure, and trading it for a fleeting thrill often leads to regret. As we come to the end of this story, what lessons have you taken away? How can you apply these insights to shape your future decisions and relationships? Life is full of complexities, but understanding the balance between emotions and reason is key to navigating its challenges. If you found this story thought-provoking, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more captivating tales. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.